Thank you. Thank you. I want to just take a minute to point something out that maybe everybody isn't aware of. Have you noticed the beautiful male-female balance that's been going on up here? Yeah. I mean, it's really important to take note of the energies that exchange between the men and the women, how we balance these messages of the external and the internal, the objective and the emotional, and not just that it's deposited in one or the other, but that it's full in each of us. And that is very, very important in a culture that has split us off from ourselves, okay? Take note. Take note of that. Mm-hmm. And so now I'm about to bring Cassie back out, and you remember her intelligence and her dedication, and today she's as beautiful as she's been every day. So come on out here, Cassie.
Okay, you guys. Okay, this has been awesome. You still have your eggs? All right, I want to hear this for my amazing Dean Radin, which I love. Just love hearing him. Thanks to Dean. And what about Marianne? Awesome. Woo! I hope you're going to her workshop. I don't know if there's still space. That would be great. So I was thinking about, you might not have known this when you signed up for the conference, but it wasn't just a registration. It was apparently an application. And in order to come here, apparently you had to be awesome because you guys are incredible. You have inspired me so much this week on every level. It's just been amazing. So I was thinking this last year I was invited to go speak at the European Environmental Agency in Copenhagen, which is a place that's kind of like the Environmental Agency in the US, except it has delegates from each of the European Union nations who are there to work on environmental issues like ocean health and climate change. They amass all the data, and then they bring back the information to the countries and say, this is what you need to do. So somebody talked to me and said, we're giving the countries the information, the data are there, and they're not changing their behavior. And I said, well, that's because information doesn't change behavior. So they said, well, what does change behavior? So what we know, I think, is that information is maybe 10% of change in behavior or worldview. It's a small part of what changes how we think about the world, how we see things, how we relate to other people, what we do. So what is 90% of how most agencies are trying to change the world? Giving out a lot of information. So then they'll say, well, okay, obviously they have the information, they need to be motivated. And so motivation is the key. And I'll tell you, I cut my teeth as a psychologist working with addicts and alcoholics, and our thought then, too, was that they're just not motivated enough. Well, I have never seen a more motivated group of people who still had trouble changing their behavior. So 10% is maybe information, 10% is motivation. What is the rest? What is the rest of the 80%? It's transformation. It's a change in worldview. And what I've been conveying to you all weekend is that we think that change in worldview comes from 4 essential things. The first and the most fundamental, and it can't happen without it, is a full-on direct experience of a different story for yourself, a different way of viewing the world, a deep emotional mind, body, and spirit experience. This is what we call Noetic. So that actually isn't always enough. It's also helpful to have that external confirmation or the information, not only to confirm or validate, because these experiences actually don't need validation and confirmation. It helps people, especially your left brain. It helps the left brain get on board with what's happening. But it's not absolutely necessary. But that scientific exploration expands your understanding of the experience that happened to you. And that's what, as you know, we're involved in at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, is using the scientific method to explore, expand, to go on a quest to understand how we can better understand the further reaches of our human potential and find out a more accurate and complete and whole view of the nature of reality. And the third thing, as I shared with you the first night, is that there's got to be a way to apply it in your life, tools, applications, curricula, trainings, things that you can do in your everyday life so this doesn't just stay in the philosophical realm, but it's made manifest in the world. And the fourth is community. And so that's why this conference was all about the science of being and the spirit of community. And so some of the things that inspired me the most this week, and maybe some of you can share what inspired you after this, is, Tim Boyd the first night talking about how if we love something enough, that's when it reveals itself to us, that love is the pathway towards that revelation. And if you know, Rick Tarnas is a philosopher of science, and he talks about the scientific method up until now has been sort of like, we are going to dominate and torture the secrets out of nature. And he says what we have to do is seduce nature like a lover to ask her to reveal her secrets to us. And it's only when we approach learning more about our human potential and the nature of reality with that sense of humility and love and adventure, and that we have that respectful seduction, that we will learn more. And I do think that we're on the cusp. The Institute of Noetic Sciences and our colleagues all around the world, I believe that we're on the cusp of scientific discoveries about our human potential that are on par with germ theory, with electricity, with things that have radically shifted our entire society and planet. And so I thank you so much for all of the support you've given us over this week and the encouragement. It's not just financial support, it's not just giving us your email address, it's that we know there are thousands of people all around the world who are cheering for this effort to succeed. So you all know that we've done some studies on transformations in consciousness, and that we've come up with sort of a map. And when you've had an experience like I hope you've had at this conference, we did learn a few things about what you can do to take it into your everyday life. How many of you have gone to a workshop or a conference and you're completely radically changed and opened, and within maybe 2 or 3 days you're kind of back into driving your car, right? What can you do to maybe integrate this more? Well, one of the things you can do is intentionally savor the memories of the conference that you enjoyed the most, or that you were most inspired by or most challenged by, intentionally every morning when you wake up for the next several weeks. What we know is that the way the brain is hardwired, we're like Velcro for negative experiences, we're like Teflon for positive experiences. So what we have to do is actually intentionally turn our attention towards savoring these experiences. So I invite you to do a little bit of journaling or to write down your favorite things and just bring them back, maybe even just a minute or two every morning as you wake up over the next several weeks. The next is daily reminders, and I'll let you know that when I was doing our studies on transformations in consciousness, we interviewed about 60 masters and teachers who were really my role models. And at that point, I think I was about 33, and I had become a real spiritual snob. And I was like, I don't need beads and bobble-headed Buddhas on the dashboard. That's kind of a materialization of spirituality. And I know less mature people need those kinds of things, but I don't need that anymore. So I go and talk to all these masters, and every single one of them says, the only way I remember to be who I am is to have beads and things all around me to remind me. So I was like, yes, I get my stuff back. So definitely get your stuff. It's fine. Have a bobble-headed Buddha. Do whatever it is you need to do to remind yourself who you want to be and how you want to make a difference in this world. The other thing we learned is make sure that you rotate your reminders. So if you've got a room at home that's full of dusty Kuan Yins, you need to rotate all that stuff, because what's happened is it's already integrated itself into your habit system. We're not here about creating new habits. Sometimes I hear that word. It's not about creating a new habit. It's about walking through life awake and aware with an open mind and an open heart and dancing with reality as it unfolds. Okay, also really helpful to access continuing inspiration. And you notice I didn't say information, I said inspiration, but often inspiration does come in the form of information. So let yourself keep watching films that inspire you, listening to talks that inspire you. Every single talk here was recorded by Conference Recordings, and I know that you could only choose 2 breakout sessions to go to, so pick up the recordings, take them and listen to them on your commute, often much better than listening to the news. Access continuing inspiration on a daily basis. Make sure that you have a daily mind, body, spirit practice. This is all so obvious, right? We spent a decade studying transformation, and we came out with things like spend time in nature, have some time every day for silence. So it's not rocket science, but in a way it is, because these are simple things, but they're not easy. Make sure that you have a daily mind, body, spirit practice that works for you. And one way to do that is to make things that you already do into a transformative and spiritual practice. What we know about practices that support transformation is there are 4 elements that make them practices, and they are not the cushion or the mala or the tanka, right? What they are is intention, bringing an intention for the well-being of yourself and your community to whatever it is you're doing. Attention, directing your attention in an intentional way and in a different way than you do in your everyday life. Repetition, that is the definition of practice, kind of, but repeatedly doing this over and over. And guidance, having some map or some teacher or some cosmology or framework that helps you practice what you want to develop. You know, if you go to the gym and you say, I want to build my bicep, and you say, hey, this is not working, that's because your trainer's going to tell you, well, that doesn't build a bicep, this builds a bicep, right? So guidance isn't about having a dogma or having a controlling teacher. It's just about having someone say, oh, you know, if that's what you're trying to develop, you might try this. So intention, attention, repetition, and guidance. You could actually bring these things to everyday activities. As you all know, I work with pregnant women and new moms, and the idea that they could take 30 minutes or an hour away for spiritual practice every day is really difficult. So we do things like the practice of folding the laundry and mindful showering and doing the dishes and the carpool sangha. You can make your everyday activities into these practices when you infuse them with attention, intention, and some guidance. So finally, the most important thing that almost every single one of these teachers said was absolutely essential is community. It is really difficult to grow in isolation. Now, there are some practices that require isolation. They require maybe a 3-year silent retreat in a cave. But still, when you come back, having a community of support, because there's something about being with other people. It's kind of like a bicycle race when they're riding along and you catch their draft, you get behind them and you get to go a little bit faster just based on the person in front of you. There's also kind of a tuning fork, right? So all of us together this weekend have formed a resonant field where we're vibrating at a higher frequency because we're with each other, finding a community. And it was interesting because in these 60 people that we interviewed, 59 of them said, you've got to find a like-minded community. You got to find a like-minded community. So I was interviewing maybe number 59 or 60, and they said, well, a like-minded community is the last thing you need. I said, what? They said, you need a challenging community. You don't need a community of people who are all singing the exact same song. You want to have a harmonic, right, in your life? So you find people who aren't afraid to tell you, you are not doing what you said you wanted to do. You are not being who you said you wanted to be. Like-minded and challenging. So those are some of the things that I think can help bring this conference home. You know, I just want to say that one of the things that inspired me the most about this conference was our next generation team, and I'd like them all to stand up if you're in the room. I am so impressed and proud and amazed by what they put together. The spotlight talks, the dance. I would like to say to Emmanuel that what happens at the dance party is supposed to stay at the dance party. I want to acknowledge the diversity of disciplines represented here, the diversity of ages represented here, the geographic diversity, the cultural diversity. And I want to say that this has been an amazing place where we have been able to manifest some of our ideal ways of being. And I also want to say, there have been some challenging moments during this conference where even a conscious community like this can be challenged to bring our best selves to that diversity. And that doesn't mean we should stop. It means that what we need to do is still spend more time together, directly experiencing each other and deeply listening to who that person is and where they're coming from, using the science of social interaction so that we can elevate the way we are together, using the tools that we have been taught to work with each other in harmony, and continuing to be dedicated to building a community that reflects the love that Marianne was talking about, that reflects the capacities that Dean was talking about, that reflects what we want the future to be about. Okay, so back to inside of me. I just want to express my deepest gratitude for all of you who are representing thousands of people around the world who are working together to re-enchant our world. I used this phrase the first time. I really believe that we are at a place where very, very soon it is going to be unacceptable for classrooms to be dead. It's going to be unacceptable for healthcare settings to be sanitized so much so that they remove the spirit. It's going to be unacceptable for businesses to prioritize profit without any ethical consideration. It's just not going to be acceptable for the criminal justice system to actually be a criminal injustice system. It is not going to be acceptable for the people who are meant to protect us to have zero training and to take people down in the street. We are going to come to a place, I think sooner than we think, where we can use the skills and tools and experiences and science that we've been talking about this weekend to form a new world. Somebody came to me and gave me this poem this weekend after I used the word re-enchant the world, and I want to end with this. She wasn't sure who the author was. It is up to us to re-enchant this planet Earth. It is up to us to send our dead along the ancient pathway to the future. It's up to us to break the spell that darkens this living planet Earth. It was our spell, and we can break it. We can dance the ancient dances, and our bodies will remember. We can sing the ancient songs, and together we can learn to love each other. We can learn to live together. We can learn to ride the eagle. We can call the deer home. Thank you.
Wow, we're all a little in overdrive of consciousness here. Bringing this 4 days to a close. I want to thank all of you for being here, for having the wisdom and vision to come to this conference. And as you travel out into the world, may you carry the advice that Cassie has just so profoundly given to you. We thank the Institute of Noetic Sciences for putting on this marvelous conference, for inviting these extraordinary speakers, and for creating this environment to explore the science of being. and the spirit of community. We've certainly got very deep understanding of what the science of being is all about. Carry that with you. Put it in your soul. Know it's there. Find your love in it and go forward into the world with all that great knowledge. And as you move onward and outward into a new space of higher consciousness after this conference, remember one thing: the spirit of community. It is larger than the sum of its parts. It grows and it gets ever greater. It's the spirit of your heart. It's the spirit of the extraordinary things that have been birthed in these last 4 days. Federico Fajan, more or less telling us he might be on the verge of a unified field theory. Barbara Marx Hubbard telling us she's ready to promote a planetary awakening. Marianne Williamson telling us to find our love and our conscience and to drive ourselves forward with that. And so many other extraordinary things. Remember that. And when you get discouraged, and when you are a little frustrated in the future, think about the future. Think about 30, 50, 70 years from now. Pick your time. But the transformation is now. It's happening. It will happen. There is a better, brighter future because all of you are co-creating it with all of us right now. And you know, that time in the future when maybe some of us who are still around, maybe our children, our grandchildren, and they look back and they say, in 2015, when the true social transformation to turn things around on planet Earth was born, where were you, Grandma, Grandpa? What were you doing? And you can tell them proudly, I was there. I was on the cutting edge. I was at the 2015 IONS conference, exploring the science of being and finding my community to carry my spirit forward and do my part to serve humanity, to save the world. Nothing less than that. Thank you, and bless you all.
Now, y'all, Emmanuel thinks he's going to walk off the stage.
I was trying to go.
That's not what's happening. That's not what's happening, you know? We have to dance out of here. Okay? I hope to see you at the book signing or at lunch or whatever, but everybody, come on, y'all, stand up. Let's stir it up. Stir it up. Gather up your things, because what I want to see is an entourage of rhythm on your way out of here, moving fluidly and with a lot of fun through this energy field. Okay? So, let's start here.